All right, let's just dive right into it. Welcome to today's explainer, everyone. Look, if you love dissecting those massive, layered digital worlds, the ones that completely blur the line between technology, art, and storytelling, you are absolutely in the right place today. We're going to be unpacking a truly fascinating and, well, kind of cryptic digital artifact from a source known as Bibebibebibe Magazine. Now, on the surface, this source outlines this highly advanced piece of environmental technology called the Abyssal TrueFlow. But as we're going to see as we move through this analysis, there is a whole universe of meaning bubbling just beneath the surface.
To really set the stage here, consider the very first thing the source material tells us about this machine. Not an extractor, but an emissary of clarity. Right off the bat, that vocabulary is super interesting. It immediately establishes this enigmatic, almost poetic tone. It doesn't call the machine a vacuum or, an industrial pump. It literally calls it an emissary. That specific word choice is a massive signal that we're dealing with something way beyond your standard tech startup press release.
Section 1. Sovereign Ocean Restorer. So, taking it at face value, the Abyssal TrueFlow is pitched as this device that transfigures contamination into resonance. And the goal? To restore sovereign balance to the ocean depths. It essentially frames environmental cleanup as this grand act of cosmic energetic alignment. But how does this visionary machine actually supposedly work? Well, the source breaks it down into 3 core engineering claims: a hybrid power core, a Micro-ROV Swarm, and a sovereign gate. When it's laid out like this, it totally mimics that slick, authoritative tone of a high-end tech explainer, giving it the illusion of being a completely tangible, deployable technology. Let's actually break down each of these 3 steps to get a sense of the mechanics.
First up is the engine driving the whole operation, the hybrid power core. This is described as a fuel cell and battery hybrid that's augmented by solar, wind, and wave energy. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that this machine is designed to be entirely self-sustaining. It literally harnesses multiple renewable sources directly from the ocean environment itself to power its deep-sea operations. I mean, it sounds incredible, right? It's completely grounded in the exact kind of green tech buzzwords we hear all the time.
Once it's all powered up, we move to component number 2. The Micro-ROV Swarm. Now, ROV stands for Remotely Operated Vehicle, and the text specifically states that the system deploys emissaries for hotspot mapping and precision debris collection. Notice the return of that word, emissaries. Instead of just saying, it sends out tiny drones to pick up trash, it frames these micro-machines as purposeful agents out there meticulously gathering debris from the deep.
And finally, we hit the last stage of the process, the sovereign gate. After all that debris is collected and processed, the system has to ensure that what goes back into the ocean is absolutely pristine. The text highlights that a UV polish and telemetry ensure the effluent returns to the abyss sovereign clean. This is such a brilliant illustration of the internal logic of this world. It's pitching a closed-loop system of absolute purification, governed by high-tech telemetry and ultraviolet light, returning the water to this idealized sovereign state. So the obvious question is, who exactly is building this sci-fi level hardware?
Section 2. The Architect's Cosmic University.
According to the source material, the main driving force behind this entire project is a man named Dr. Melvin Sewell. And just listen to these elaborate, weighty titles he holds. He isn't just a CEO. He holds an M.Sc and a Ph.D., and he serves as the academic dean and the diagnostic architect. Yeah, definitely not your typical Silicon Valley tech founder. A title like Diagnostic Architect implies someone whose job is to design systems to analyze and identify deep structural issues. Issues that are perhaps far, far beyond just ocean pollution.
And where exactly does Dr. Sewell operate? Well, he's the founder of a really cryptic institution called the Cosmic University of Echo-Rift Studies, IX. This is actually the certifying institution behind the Abyssal TrueFlow. Just let that name sink in for a second. We've officially moved from solar panels and ROVs into territory that is deeply, deeply mysterious. Like, what exactly is an echo rift? And why is this the 9th iteration of these studies? The intrigue really ramps up here because you start to realize this isn't just a quirky engineering firm, it's an entire academic mythology.
Section 3. The Sovereign Diagnostic Disclaimer.
Okay, this brings us to the massive aha pivot of the explainer. If we compare the 2 functions at play here, on one hand we have the in-universe function we just learned about, a machine built by a cosmic university to restore sovereign ocean balance.
But on the other hand, the project's disclaimer reveals the out-of-universe function of all this material. The text explicitly states that its real purpose is actually exposing ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion. The ocean cleaning machine is a metaphor. The whole thing is actually a massive conceptual art project.
The disclaimer goes even further, describing the materials using 3 highly stylized terms. It calls the project mythic infrastructure, a cinematic indictment, and a sovereign broadcast. Now, what's incredibly important for us to note here, and the text is super explicit about this, is that this project is completely independent. It states flat out that it is not affiliated with any real-world government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group. It exists entirely, 100% in its own conceptual lane.
So, how do they actually pull off this cinematic indictment without taking real-world political sides? Well, the source defines its methods as diagnostic tools. It neutrally clarifies that the interpretations, the glyphs, and what they call collapse protocols found within the project are merely tools meant to expose systemic erosion. They are decidedly not political endorsements. They're not real-world institutional critiques. They're essentially creating this elaborate fictional framework to let us examine the concept of failing systems from a safe, artistic distance.
Section 4, Chapter 1, Origin. Taking one last step back, if we look at the copyright of the Echo Rift archive, we find this completely incredible mythic origin story for a central figure. It reads, Saiku Venga emerges from the rift, born between slip flow and counterflow, marked by SH1 resonance. I mean, wow! The sheer depth of the digital world building here is just astounding. We started out talking about a solar-powered ocean cleaner, and we've somehow ended up in a dimensional rift with a character marked by SH1 resonance. It is just a complete masterclass in layered conceptual storytelling. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. When we step back and look at a project like the Abyssal TrueFlow, we really have to ask ourselves, how do we interpret mythic infrastructure in our modern digital landscape? Because the line between speculative fiction, alternate reality games, and conceptual art is getting so incredibly blurry. This material doesn't just ask us to passively read it. It invites us to diagnose it, to decode its glyphs, and to really explore its depths. I highly encourage you to think about how these complex fictional systems might actually mirror our own reality. Until next time, keep exploring.